Or feedback. Email your comments to wdev@radiovermont.com.
The energy. We walked around for 35 minutes just in the parking lot looking for this car. The passion. UVM schedules the way they do to get as high a seed as possible in the NCAA tournament and to get as much tournament prep as they can because they're not going to get it from their league. The opinions on all your favorite teams. The organization should be taking care of Matt rather than Matt taking care of the organization. This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
What's up, everybody? Wild Tuesday here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV. We're on for all 90 minutes. We're up until 7 o'clock. Then at that point, we kick it over to World Series action Game 3. Rained out last night. We get Game 3 tonight in Philadelphia with the series tied at 1 game apiece. We got NFL trade deadline stuff. We got Travis, who already tells me, like, how great. He's already on the text line. Like, hey, trade deadline was awesome. Yeah, trade deadline was awesome. Patriots didn't do anything. We'll talk about that, though. So trade deadline, what's going on with the Celtics? Bob Socci, voice of the Pats, will join us here in 15 minutes. There is a ton to get to, and you can be like Travis on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line, 802-585-3026, your locally owned Napa stores in Waterbury and Morrisville.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
The opening thoughts in the Brady Farkas Show are brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and by Swanton Lumber, Vermont's most complete locally owned home center. Locations: Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at sticksandstuff.org. And again, Swanton Lumber as well, or sticksandstuff.com, excuse me. We're also going to hear a little bit from Coach Brennan, talk a little UVM hoops towards the end of the show. Also, I spoke with him earlier. Going to get the best of Brennan at about 6:40 or so. The Brooklyn Nets are going to hire Ime Udoka as their head coach. It's not official. The Nets are denying it. I'm operating as if it's going to happen because it is going to happen. And I've got to say that I am bothered and upset at the Celtics' handling of all of this. Let's just step back. If you have been working all day and missed what's gone on, here's the 60-second Cliff's Notes. The Brooklyn Nets today fired Steve Nash. The Brooklyn Nets are 2-5. They promoted Jacques Vaughn to interim head coach. Then Shams Charania of The Athletic said that they're going to hire Ime Udoka. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN said the Celtics are going to let them hire Ime Udoka. Now, if you remember, Ime Udoka was suspended by the Celtics for workplace improprieties basically 2 months ago. They did not fire Ime Udoka. Ime Udoka is, at this moment, still under contract with the Celtics. They are still paying him. So they need to approve him going anywhere, and they need to let him out of his contract, which they are reportedly going to let happen. Before we get to the Celtics and my anger about this, one, good for Steve Nash. I know it sucks to see your name next to the word fired, and nobody with as much pride as Steve Nash has wants to be fired, but good for him. The Brooklyn Nets are toxic. Kyrie is toxic. Kevin Durant is toxic. They're toxic in different ways, but they are toxic. And Steve Nash made $175 million playing basketball. He doesn't need a coach's salary. Steve Nash is a Hall of Famer. He doesn't need to be run ragged by this group. I'm happy. Once the initial disappointment about seeing your name next to the word fired wears off, he will realize he is in a much better place. Second off, I'm going to talk a lot about basketball for the next 7 or 8 minutes here when it comes to Ime Udoka and it comes to the Celtics. I do not want to lose sight of the fact that an alleged womanizer, an alleged woman manipulator in Ime Udoka is being given a second chance so quickly. There's a separate place for that conversation. And if you are somebody, a woman, a man, anybody who is uncomfortable with Ime Udoka getting a second chance so quickly, I understand, I hear you, and I feel for you. And just because I'm talking about basketball doesn't mean I'm discounting that angle, and I want that to be known. When it comes to the Boston Celtics here, I'm pretty confused and I'm pretty bothered. So again, Shams says that Udoka and the Nets are working towards a deal. Woj says the Celtics are going to let Udoka leave for another job. I don't get it. From the Celtics' perspective, I don't get it, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I thought that the Celtics were holding on to Ime Udoka in order to prevent exactly this. Like, the Celtics know that Ime Udoka is a good coach. I thought they were suspending him, not firing him, in large part because they didn't want him going somewhere else where he could play the Celtics and beat them and halt their pursuit of a championship. I thought the whole reason, not the whole reason, I thought most of the reason behind not firing Udoka was to protect yourself from him going somewhere and beating you. I don't get it. So all of this confusion leads me to two questions. If you don't care as the Celtics about Ime Udoka going somewhere else, then why didn't you just fire him immediately? If Ime Udoka coaching somewhere else was always just going to be okay with you when you were going to let him do it, then why not fire him and let him start the process earlier? I thought you were trying to keep Udoka from going places. If that's not the case, then why even bother with the dog and pony show of suspending him? Just fire him and let him go about his career. So I don't get it from that perspective. And two, why are you willing to let him go somewhere else? Why? But if the Celtics kept him suspended, they can afford to pay him, right? He took a pay cut in this whole punishment. They can afford to pay him. They should just keep him on ice, as far as I'm concerned. Ime Udoka is a good coach. I want him nowhere near an NBA floor this year if I'm the Boston Celtics. Because the Nets are a mess at 2-5, right? They're a huge mess. Kyrie's toxic, Durant's toxic, but you know what? They're also incredibly talented. And you now run the risk of Ime Udoka going in, connecting in Brooklyn, fixing Brooklyn, and then beating you with Brooklyn. And that's not a can of worms that I want open if I'm the Boston Celtics. I know somebody out there is in their car thinking, oh, Brady, you can't keep him on ice. That's cynical. Let him go about his career. I don't care. Ime Udoka was my head coach. He screwed my organization. He screwed with, rather, you know what I mean? He screwed over employees in my organization. He hurt employees in my organization. He betrayed my organization's trust. I don't care if he doesn't get a second chance right away. No. You do something wrong, you deserve to pay. And I want to keep you on ice for the entirety of the year. I'm not worried about Udoka's career now. I'm worried about the people in my organization that he allegedly victimized. I'm worried about my organization then basketball-wise, and I have no interest in letting him coach my rivals. The Celtics should never let him do this. And I'm disappointed that they're going to, and I'm upset today as a Celtics fan. 802-585-3026. Text Zach and Isle Lamont. Brady, come on. You can't hold him back forever. There was no crime committed. There were no charges filed. Zach, there were no charges filed. And I understand that. And I'm not looking to hold him back forever. I'm not looking to end his career. I'm looking to hold him back. I wanted to hold him back for this year. If he wants to be up for the Nets job next season, if I keep him on ice through the year, and he wants to get hired by the Brooklyn Nets in July, when Kyrie's gone and when Kevin Durant's a year older, then so be it. Have at it. What I don't want is right now, Kyrie Irving to still be excellent and on the roster. And KD, I don't want this whole thing getting fixed this year. If he wants to go get the job in next April, next July, go ahead. Kyrie will be gone and Durant will be a year older. Then I won't hold you from that. But I want to halt you from this now. I want to halt you from this now. And I'm not out to take care of Ime Udoka. I'm out to take care of me. And I don't need him coaching my rivals as it stands right now. Luke in Newberry. Do you think they held on to Udoka for the idea of making a team trade for him in the future? Luke, that's a smart thought. That's actually a rational thought, but the Celtics apparently aren't going to require that either. They are just going to let Ime Udoka go. And I don't get it. Like, they could have kept him on ice. They're not. They could have required the Nets to trade for him. They're not. They're just going to let him go. In which case, I just wonder, why didn't you just fire him 2 months ago? And I don't even care about a potential trade. NBA draft picks outside the top 10 are largely worthless. Yes, every once in a while an Isaiah Thomas or a Draymond Green, they hit. Rudy Gobert, guys, from 25 on. But largely NBA draft picks are worthless. So if the Nets were going to give me a second-round pick, for Ime Udoka, I could care less. I would rather have him not coaching the Nets than any draft pick compensation that I might get from him. Webb in Starksboro. How do you think Tatum and Brown feel about this development? Great question. We're going to do that. That's a great question. I got Bob Socci here in a few minutes. Webb, I'm going to answer that when we talk more about this at about 6:25 or so, because we're going to get back in to the Celtics today. Nate in Starksboro, maybe the Celtics want Nash to be their head coach? I don't think so. Now, they could really make this a battle if they want to make him if they want to make Nash an assistant, but I doubt that. Like, now their support has to be solely behind Joe Mazzulla. I mean, that's the right thing to do at this point. They like Joe Mazzulla. They've publicly endorsed Joe Mazzulla. He's got to be their guy at this point. Alex says, clearly you're more petty than Stevens. I don't think what I'm doing is petty. Really. How often do you see this, right? Look at what the players can get screwed all the time, right? Management can manipulate things all the time, right? Players are part of an organizational tank. Players are held out of games so that a team will lose. Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be released, but not going to be released until it was too late for him to really help somebody else. Players can get screwed all the time, but you're telling me I can't screw a coach who's done nothing, who's committed improprieties on my turf? No, I don't need to help that guy. That to me is not petty. That to me is just the way the cookie crumbles. You committed a wrong that was apparently so bad that you can't coach my team. You don't deserve a favor. You don't deserve a handout. You don't deserve a second chance this quickly. I don't need to worry about Ime Udoka. I need to worry about me. The people in my organization who you hurt and betrayed their trust, and my basketball team who I want. The Boston Celtics are trying to win a title. They are trying to win a title. They've already got the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers in their way. I don't need the Brooklyn Nets to figure it out and them to be in my way either. I don't need it, nor do I want it. And the Celtics have let it happen, and I don't quite get it. Texter says, you're right. He should have been fired if the violation was so egregious. Well, yeah. If your plan, like if you were never going to care where he coached, then he should have just been fired. He should have just been fired. If you were always just going to be okay with him being somewhere else, he should have been fired right away. We're going to get into the Celtics again at about 6:25, but I've got the voice of the Patriots, Bob Socci, calling in on the phone line. So let's get to Bob.
The old names are gone.
Brady takes the snap, back pedals, fires left, catch made by White, turns to the inside, dives across the goal line. Touchdown, Patriots!
But there's new hope in Foxborough.
Stevenson with a great run to the outside. Still on to go. Andre Stevenson trying to go wire. Second touchdown.
For the latest on the Patriots, we talk to the voice of the Patriots, Bob Socci, on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show. Not really welcome back in. Welcome back after the music, rather, to the Brady Farkas Show. We are joined now by the voice of the New England Patriots, your 4-4 New England Patriots, continuing on a Patriots win Monday into Patriots win Tuesday. Bob Socci is with us now, as he is every Tuesday at this time. Bob, thanks for being with us. How are you?
I'm good, Brady. Good to be talking to you under the circumstances this week, as opposed to last week, of course, coming off the Monday night game. Not that the Patriots got a lot of style points for the victory over New York, but their 22 points were enough, and that's all that matters, really.
Before we get to the Pats, I'm sure you were on dad duty on some form yesterday on Halloween, either out trick-or-treating or passing out candy at home. What was the most creative costume you saw in your Halloween experience last night?
The most creative costume that I saw was actually in a photograph from a friend at a party in his neighborhood, far from ours. I saw a lot of Harry Potter themed costumes out and about last night. My favorite, though, was from a good friend who went with a New Jersey Devils jersey or sweater, as they say in hockey, on with his face painted in the Devils colors. He went as David Putty. Yes. All you Seinfeld fans out there. So that's my favorite. But I did see where someone, again, through a photograph that a friend sent me, had their little girl dressed up in a mouse costume in a wagon, which was decorated as if it were a mouse trap, and there was a block of cheese. that was the favorite that I saw. But again, in person, I got to go with the putty costume.
Those are good. The best I saw on social media were I saw a kid dressed up as Ken Griffey Jr. inside a chrome box, and he went as a chrome baseball card, which was pretty good. And then I saw a dad and like maybe a year-and-a-half-year-old that went as Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve. I saw that as well. Not quite an authentic replica. Is there such a thing as an authentic replica? Not even a reasonable facsimile of a Yankees official jersey, but still, it was a great concept. I got the thought that counts. All right, let's talk about the Patriots. They win. They're 4-4. 24 hours ago, I didn't feel real good about the win. And I try not to be that guy who complains about wins, because wins are wins and they all count the same, and there are no style points. You don't get bonus points for winning pretty. I didn't walk away from Sunday feeling particularly great about how the Patriots played. You tend to be very optimistic. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I should feel better about their performance.
Well, I think you feel better because it's a win versus a loss, first of all.
Yeah.
Not to sound flippant. I think the people that broke down the film in the last couple of days saw what Bill Belichick was talking about when he said that Mac Jones made a lot of good decisions with the football. And sometimes the best decision is to not throw it. He made some bad decisions, too, as we saw. Unfortunately, the Patriots really were bailed out on roughing the passer call that nullified the pick six. That, I think, really swung the game. You go from a potential 17-3 deficit to eventually a field goal before the half, and then the lead with the score immediately on the other side. But, Brady, they're playing a team with a very, very good defense.
Yes.
And a team at home having won 4 in a row. And the Jets, albeit without some really key players, and you can't, understate that, I think, when you talk about the loss of Breece Hill, or you can't overstate it, I should say, with the loss of Breece Hall and Elijah Vera Tucker on the offensive line. Their top offensive skill player, their top offensive player, period. And then, of course, in the second half, Zach Wilson reverted to his novice form of a year ago and gave the Patriots some gifts. But they were a lot better in special teams against a team whose special teams were strength. And that was an area of, I think, very reasonable concern for the Patriots, understandably. They brought in punters to work out last week, I think, to more or less light the fire at the feet of Jake Bailey. And they won the special teams battle. That was a clear factor in the game right from the very first possession. Marcus Jones, as the game went along, set them up with good field position. They had 5 drives, I think, including the game ender, that started in Jets territory, and that was key. They had a couple of those drives that went nowhere, but they got enough field position out of the special teams where they were able to at least get a field goal from Nick Folk, and he converts 5 of them on the day. So that's an area of vast improvement over the week before, against a team that was a lot better in that department than the Chicago Bears were coming in. Special teams have been problematic for Chicago. But I think the biggest thing, Brady, is that you have the quarterback and the head coach now seemingly in a good place. And that's where this team needed to be coming out of that game. What we heard from Mac Jones and what we heard from Bill Belichick after the game is an indication to me that a lot of the conjecture, a lot of the speculation about the relationship, a lot of the theories as to why things had soured for the quarterback and the coaching staff, those things can now be set aside where they need to be for this team to have an opportunity to at least compete for a playoff position in the second half of the season. I'll give you another reason why I should feel good about the Pats. They're 500.
Yes.
And you look around the league, okay? Look around the NFL. They've got the Colts coming in. Indianapolis with Sam Ehlinger loses to the Commanders. They've got a bye. They get the Jets again. And then all of a sudden on the other side of that bye break, with the Bills looming, obviously very imposing, some of those games that only a couple of weeks ago looked a lot more daunting now, certainly seem more than winnable for the Patriots. You put yourself in the mix, you give yourself a chance. And you look around the landscape of the NFL, it's a handful, if that many, of good teams, and the rest is mediocrity to really poor quality. So I think the Patriots put themselves in a good place with the quarterback and the coaching staff. And I think beyond that, they put themselves in position at least to be in a good place by the end of the year with the record.
Bob Socci, voice of the Patriots, with us here on the Brady Farkas Show, as he is every single Tuesday at this time on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. I ask you this, and I honestly don't know the answer, and I haven't watched the film to look at it. The 6 sacks, are they all a product of the offensive line playing porous, or is some of that Mac saying, I'm going to take the sack because that is smarter than me trying to force something?
I think there's a combination of that. I think there's also Mac taking sacks that, if he had to do it over again, would have gotten rid of the ball a lot sooner. For example, one of them was critical early. They had a first and goal to go from the 8, and he took the sack holding on to the ball too long. 2-man route, deep crossers, nobody open, get rid of it. You've got to have that clock. And the Patriots' offensive line really struggled. I mean, you just look at the use of the personnel. Yeah. That's an indicator right there. Cole Strange, going up against Quinnen Williams and company for the Jets, had his roughest day as a pro. Not all that is on him. That's an outstanding defensive front. The Jets have been that way from day one this year. And Williams is one of the best interior linemen in football. You look at a couple of the other plays, Mac had no chance. I think even the first sack, for example, there was a sack where Isaiah Wynn was completely overpowered and just driven right back into the quarterback. So I think it's a combination of those 3 things for the Patriots in that game. I also thought there were some throws that Mac made that showed good decision-making that Bill Belichick touched on. And as I said, there were some poor throws as well.
Defensively, obviously, the team played very well. They did get some gifts, but they did some things to cause those gifts. Devin McCourty, the most interceptions of any active player now. He's got 33 interceptions in his career. What did the defense do, from your vantage point, to make life confusing for Zach Wilson?
I think the biggest thing for me is they, in pressuring him, did not allow him to escape sideways. Yeah. Back to the first scoring drive for the Jets. He rolls left away from the pocket, and he makes a strong throw to pick up a first down, kind of going against his body, throwing to the left side. Then he rolls right and off balance throws 154 yards to Garrett Wilson down the right side. So he was able to extend plays, escape the pressure, and again, he's moving laterally, being able to throw on the run. Well, then they got him going backwards, and that was disastrous for the Jets. He's a quarterback who had avoided the interceptions the previous 3 games, primarily because, 1, they were taking the ball out of his hands, but 2, when the ball was in his hands, he wasn't making those disastrous decisions that we saw last year in week 2 versus the Pats when he was picked off 4 times, and we saw again, particularly in the second half of Sunday's game. He goes backwards, You could see where he wants to make a play, And even when he tried to throw it away, because he's going backwards, he's fading away, there's nothing on it but a flick of the wrist, he serves the ball up from McCourty, who we should know with that first interception made a sensational play. For him to have the awareness on his knees to cradle that football inside the sideline with no margin for separation there between his left knee and the boundary, that's a terrific play. People may not recognize that, but you see a half dozen plays like that sometimes in a week in the NFL, and guys just can't make them.
I think we all have belly ached about this, and I'd love for the Patriots to have DK Metcalf or A.J. Brown on the outside. But even DK Metcalf has Tyler Lockett, and A.J. Brown has Devontae Smith. The Patriots have Jacoby Myers, and I've been saying this for 3 years. He is an incredible player, and he is integral to what the Patriots do. And, free agency is for free agency at the end of the year, but, in my mind, Jacoby Myers needs to be a career-long Patriot. This guy is always in the right place at the right time. Third down conversions, red zone conversions. He is a special player, Bob.
I'm not going to disagree with you, Brady. I think he's a guy that the Patriots should lock up. I think he's a player who's made it more than clear over the course of the last year that he'd like to remain here. I like Jacoby Myers as a person. I think, there's a candor to him at times. And he'll say some things that, I think reveal, his inner honesty and sometimes maybe more than the team would like to know, or would like us to know at times. Can I think about something he said in the summer with regards to the offense and still having trouble picking up the offense. And then even last week he talked about his personal feelings with Mac being booed. I don't have a problem with any of that. And I think Jacoby Myers is a real leader in terms of his work habits. And also just the example, undrafted free agent. Remember the first 6 weeks of 2020, he didn't play. He was inactive one game. He was a DNP the next. He had one target and one catch at that point. Then Julian Edelman got hurt against San Francisco, and Myers played out of necessity. And from that point on, he's been the Patriots' most reliable receiver. He's able to get open, though he doesn't have great speed. There is a certain knack that he has, not only, I think, the precision of his routes at times, his ability at the line of scrimmage to get open, despite not being as small and as quick as some of those guys like Edelman and Amendola that we've seen play in that position for the Patriots, where for defenders it was hard to get their hands on him. Jacoby makes it hard for guys to get their hands on him because of his moves at the line and his awareness of spacing as well. And I just think he's a guy that you want to keep around for all the intangible reasons, but most of all because of what we see demonstrated in the numbers. Another thing, too, is going back to late last year, he didn't have a touchdown catch, remember, until the Cleveland game. Midway through the 2021 season, he's had 5 touchdown receptions since, including 3 in the last 4 games.
Patriots are 4-4. They're back at it again on Sunday against the 3-4-1 Colts. Bob, my fiance and I are coming to that game. We were at the Jaguar game last year. We're going to be there on Sunday. Is there anything different about the game day experience this year? Has anything changed in the stadium? Anything that's going to be different to me from January of last season?
Well, I think the biggest change, Brady, might be that I don't think you introduced your fiance last year to me as your fiance. The game. Or were you engaged?
I was, but we did not meet at the game. Yeah, it was too crazy last year for us to meet. But yes.
All right. So well, beyond the fact that I didn't know you were engaged last year when you came to the game, and I do now have that understanding. You'll see massive cranes. You'll see a lot of construction ongoing in the north end zone, where the Patriots, of course, are reinvesting in the stadium, and eventually they will have the largest outdoor video board in sports, American sports, and also a much taller lighthouse than in the past. But right now it's an unfinished product, so you're going to see a temporary video board, and again, a lot of beams, some cranes, a lot of construction at least put on hold for Sunday when the Pats take on the
Well, looking forward to that game at 1. Looking forward to all of our Patriots coverage here on WDEV as well. Bob Socci, voice of the Pats, with us every Tuesday. Bob, appreciate it, and hopefully we're talking next week on a Patriots Win Tuesday.
All right, Brady.
Absolutely. There goes Bob Socci, voice of the team. And, yeah, I am looking forward to going with Jess on Sunday. It's supposed to be 73 degrees. Look, I'm all for it not being -10 when I'm at the game, but 73 on November 6th, that seems absurd. But I am excited to go to the game, and the Colts are going to look a little different, right? New quarterback, new offensive coordinator. They traded away Nyheim Hines today. We're going to get to that when we look at the NFL trade deadline. I want to step aside. I want to get the national news update from CBS. Then I want to recap some of what Bob had to say. I will tell you about the crazy day in the NFL. Trade deadline was wild for almost everybody except the Patriots. We'll talk about it next on DEV.
96.1 WDEV FM Warren, 96.5 W243 AT Barry, 98.3 W252 CU Montpelier, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Dell Small Business.
I'm Monica Ricks in New York. President Biden is making a final push for Democrats in Florida today ahead of midterms next week. CBS's Skylar Henry reports.
President Biden told voters in the battleground state of Florida that it's Democrats, not Republicans, who can best tackle economic problems.
We have the lowest inflation rate of almost any major country in the world. We've done a lot to try to take it under control.
It's not just Democrats rolling out the big names, hoping to get supporters to the polls. Former Vice President Mike Pence is rallying Republican voters in the battleground state of Georgia.
This may not be the most important election of our lifetime. This may actually be the most important election in the life of our nation.
California's Governor Gavin Newsom tells CBS's Major Garrett he can't believe Republicans are ahead.
The other side is ruthless. They're winning the messaging war. They put us on the defense over and over and over again. They have weaponized grievance. They've amplified a message with surround sound, and we have nothing comparable on our side.
More of that exclusive interview on CBS Evening News. The Supreme Court has rejected Senator Lindsey Graham's request to dodge grand jury testimony in Georgia on the 2020 election.
In an unsigned order, the court said lower courts already had put limits on the grand jury and any questions about Graham's official legislative duties. It said if Graham has objections to specific questions that would violate his legislative immunity, the lower courts are capable of handling it. There were no noted dissents. Jan Crawford, CBS News, the Supreme Court.
A not guilty plea from the man accused of assaulting Nancy Pelosi's husband. Here's CBS's Matt Piper.
Wearing an orange jumpsuit, his arm in a black sling, David DePape pleaded not guilty to all state charges he faces after allegedly attacking Paul Pelosi with a hammer last Friday. The 42-year-old could face decades behind bars if found guilty on the state and federal charges. DePape is being held in county jail in San Francisco and is next in court on Friday.
In Florida, Parkland families condemned the school shooter who killed 17 people in 2018.
I have no forgiveness in my heart for you. You are a monster with no remorse, and every breath you take is a breath wasted.
Houston police are investigating the death of Migos rapper Takeoff and say these shootings need to stop. Chief Troy Finner.
And I'm calling up on everybody, our hip-hop artists in Houston and around the nation. We got to police ourselves.
Exit polls in Israel now show former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may have won enough seats to return to power after 3.5 years of political gridlock. This is Israel's 5th national election since 2019. This is CBS News.
Dell Technologies early Black Friday starts now with 48% off business PCs powered by 12th Gen Intel Core processors. Call 877-ASK-DELL.
Why wait to save? Dell Technologies Black Friday event arrives early with select deals on top tech to power business productivity. The savings start now with up to 48% off performance business PCs powered by 12th Gen Intel Core processors. Don't forget special pricing on the latest monitors, docks, and accessories, including free shipping on everything. Call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL for Black Friday deals. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Here's the Prilosec OTC. Without Prilosec, I wouldn't be able to enjoy all this yummy holiday food. Speaking of, whoever made that apple pie, delicious. I just take one pill each morning and zero heartburn all day. So cheers to Prilosec OTC. Ooh, are those jalapeno poppers?
Prilosec OTC prevents excess acid that can cause heartburn, so you can enjoy the holidays. 1 pill a day, 24 hours, zero heartburn. It's possible while taking Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
Want to live longer? A new study says get off that sofa and walk.
Spanish scientists tracked some 3,300 physically inactive adults, i.e. couch potatoes, for 12 years to see what difference lifestyle changes could make. Those who managed a significant boost in their exercise levels by engaging in 150 minutes of moderate exercise each week saw their mortality fall by 45%. So heads up, couch potatoes. A brisk 20-minute walk each day can cut your chances of being cut off prematurely by nearly half. Vicki Barker, CBS News, London.
A new study suggests vaccinating pregnant women protects their newborns from the scary respiratory virus known as RSV. It can be severe for babies and older adults. Efforts to create a new vaccine have failed for decades, but recent studies are promising. Pfizer's working on a pregnancy vaccine, while rival GSK works on a vaccine for seniors. Monica Ricks, CBS News.
The Brady Farkas Show now has an interactive text line, so reach out now at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. Couple things quickly. Remember, we go up until 7 o'clock. World Series Game 3 comes up at that point. You'll hear a little bit from Coach Brennan about UVM hoops at the back end of the hour as well. A couple of texts coming in on the Celtics. So we are going to get to the Celtics again 20 minutes from now. Will says Kyrie now has to play defense with Ime Udoka. Good luck. Dane says, is there something coming down the line for Ime Udoka that the Celtics know about, and maybe they're just breaking free and clear from him? I doubt it, because even though I think the Nets have investigated this whole thing for about 7 minutes, I don't think they would hire him or would be making a move to hire him if they knew something. The NBA people kind of know where things are at. Okay? The NBA people know things that we don't know. So I got to imagine that nothing else is coming down the line about Ime Udoka. Interesting here on Twitter, somebody by the name of Anthony Doyle, who is a guy who has, 5,000 followers. So it's not a nobody, not 50,000, but he says it's interesting. Celtics actions actually make sense here. Ime Udoka harassed a female employee. If she was reluctant to go on the record, firing him with cause was legally complicated. If they pay out his full contract, everyone is mad at them for that too, so they just simply suspended him. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe. I was all belly aching at the beginning of the show about, why the Celtics didn't do this earlier. I just wanted them to keep him on ice. That's what I wanted. I don't care about what their reasons were before. I just don't want them to, there's a separate conversation about the treatment of women and valuing women. That's a separate conversation. From a pure basketball standpoint, I just wanted to see the Celtics not do anything to jeopardize their chances of winning a championship, and putting Ime Udoka back out in the marketplace, that seems like something that could jeopardize your chances. But again, Celtics will come in about 20 minutes. As for the trade deadline today in the NFL, it was wild. It was wild. Like, I'm old enough to remember when the NFL trade deadline, you didn't even know where it was because nothing happened, right? The thing is that draft picks used to be so coveted that teams would hold on to their own, so trades didn't happen. Now, draft picks are still coveted by bad and rebuilding teams. They want to stockpile them. The good teams are like, we're going for it. We need players now. So now you see this freewheeling nature of draft picks. So people are no longer afraid to make changes. People are no longer afraid to stir the pot and shake things up. The trade deadline is vastly different than it was even 5 years ago. It's certainly than it was when I was really growing up. Like, nothing used to happen at the trade deadline. Last year, we saw Odell Beckham Jr. moved. Remember, this year, we saw 11 trades that classified as trade deadline moves. Some of the bigger ones, the Vikings acquired T.J. Hawkinson, the tight end from the Lions. The Dolphins made 2 moves. They got the running back Jeff Wilson from the 49ers, who ran all over the Patriots in 2020. They also got the pass rusher Bradley Chubb from Denver. That might be the biggest move of the trade deadline. Chicago acquired wide receiver Chase Claypool from Pittsburgh for a second-round pick. Calvin Ridley went from the Jaguars to Atlanta. Remember, Ridley is suspended for the year for gambling on games, so that's more of a risk and a flyer. We don't know exactly when Ridley is going to be welcomed back in. And all this came after Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn and Christian McCaffrey. Like, these are big deals that happened over the course of the trade deadline. Huge deals. And last year, OBJ and Von Miller, like, there were Jalen Ramsey's been traded. Like, there's been a lot of deals. And then you throw in what's happened in the offseason. The NFL really is king. The NFL really is king. The offseason has become more interesting. Like, when I was growing up, it used to be what? The season and the draft. And that was it. Now, it's, I mean, the free agency is a whole special. And the draft is a whole special. And the trade market in the offseason, particularly with quarterbacks, is a thing. And then there's training camp, preseason. It's just everything is NFL. And yeah, I personally get a little bit tired of it because I prefer baseball, but there's no denying just how much the NFL is just taking over the entire calendar year. Free agency didn't used to matter that much. It was one day, and that was it. Trade deadline didn't matter at all. It was all about the season and the draft, and then everybody else was checked out. Not anymore. Just an insane amount of deals here over the course of the last couple of days, but really even over the last week since McCaffrey was traded. You know, as for the moves themselves that were made today, Hockenson, I love that going from Detroit to Minnesota. Minnesota's 6-1. They just lost Irv Smith to an ankle injury. You pair Hockenson, who had 150 yards receiving in a single game this year against Seattle. You pair him with the running backs of Alexander Mattison and Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. The Vikings are gearing up. That is not a very good division they're in the NFC North, right? The Packers are struggling. The Vikings are already, 3.5 games up on the Packers, and they've beaten them straight up, I believe. So the Packers aren't catching them. The Bears are selling parts in a lot of ways. They're not catching them. Detroit's terrible. The Vikings are going to win that division. So they're not just gearing up for a playoff berth. They're gearing up for a championship run. And it's smart to do that because we know how lackluster the NFC is right now. Like, we think the Eagles are pretty good. We think San Francisco's pretty good. The Rams don't appear to be great. The Bucs don't appear to be great. The Packers don't appear to be great. Seattle's a nice story. They might be better than we thought, but they're not as good as Minnesota. New Orleans is a disappointment. Carolina's awful. The Falcons are a nice story. I mean, really, it's the Eagles, Dallas, the Niners. The Giants are a nice story, but I don't think they're great. And the Vikings. So they are gearing up for a championship run. That is a good move to me. Miami getting Bradley Chubb is a big move. And they're probably going to sign him to a long-term deal afterwards. Dolphins have just 15 sacks on the year. I felt like all 15 of them came against the Patriots in week 1. But so they get another running back in Wilson. They get Bradley Chubb. They can get after the quarterback. That makes them better. They've got 5 wins. They're gearing up for a playoff run. And Chicago goes to get Claypool, which is not a move. Like, the Bears aren't going to make the playoffs this year, but you get Justin Fields a weapon. You can evaluate him further with better talent around him. We talk about getting answers on Mac Jones. Well, you can get answers on Justin Fields if you're Chicago. You give him a real playmaker, get some answers on Fields, and you give him a playmaker for next year when hopefully in year 3, if you do like Fields, you're ready to gear up and win with him. So I like a lot of the moves that we saw here, at least from the teams that acquired talent, right? Like, we can mock the Lions for trading away Hockenson, especially in the division. But the teams that acquired talent, I liked a lot of these moves today. A lot of these moves. Now, a couple of these moves impact the Patriots. The Patriots play Minnesota on Thanksgiving night, so they just got better. Another weapon there with TJ Hockenson. So Minnesota got better. That is a tougher now matchup for the Patriots on Thanksgiving night. The Patriots will play Miami again, so they just got better when you talk about acquiring Bradley Chubb. Patriots already have a leaky and questionable offensive line, and now their opponent gets better. Buffalo acquired Nyheim Hines. That's another running back for them to pair with Devin Singletary and all their weapons. So you look around, and a lot of teams in the AFC got better, and teams the Patriots are going to battle against got better. And you know what? The Patriots did nothing. The Patriots did nothing. And this should bother you. Okay, I am glad the Patriots didn't sell. I don't like to see my team lose games. So I like that they kept Nelson Aguilar. I like that they kept Jacoby Myers. I like that they kept Devontae Parker. I like that they kept Kendrick Bourne. I like that they kept Isaiah Wynn because you always need offensive line depth. So I'm glad they didn't sell. They also didn't go out and buy. So as I've been saying for months, the Patriots are just kind of there. That's how I felt about them going into this season, and that's how I feel about them now. The Patriots are mediocre, and this is my problem. Look around football. Look at what is happening. Teams with young quarterbacks who are inexpensive, they are what? They are gearing up. And the Patriots aren't. This is my frustration. This has been my frustration. I have been telling you for months. While Mac Jones is on a rookie deal, teams can afford to go out and get real talent. And if you don't think your quarterback is great, then go get him as much help as possible because you can afford it. Look at the Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa is in his third year. And what did they do for him in his third year? Do you think Tua is phenomenal? Because I don't. I might think he's better than some of you think, but is he a Hall of Famer in waiting? No. And what did the Dolphins do? Hey, we're going to draft him, Jalen Waddle. That's awesome. We're going to trade for Tyreek Hill. That's awesome. Now we're going to go acquire Bradley Chubb. Look at what the Dolphins are doing for their young quarterback. And the Patriots are doing nothing. This is my frustration. This is my contention. This is what bothers me. Justin Herbert, right? The Chargers have, 4 wins, I think? They went out and they signed J.C. Jackson. And yes, I know he got hurt, but they went for it. They signed J.C. Jackson. They acquired Khalil Mack. They've got Eckler and Allen and Mike Williams. I mean, this is what good teams with young, cheap quarterbacks do. Jalen Hurts, he's in, his third year, too, in the NFL? Second year in the NFL? Now I've lost track. Third year also, I think, for him? That makes sense. Jalen Hurts, third year? I have to verify that. But nonetheless, they go trade for A.J. Brown. They go get him Robert Quinn on defense. This is what good teams do. This is what good teams do. The Ravens have 1 year left here, this year, where Lamar Jackson's not making a gazillion dollars, and they go get him Roquan Smith on defense. Like, this is the playbook. I have been telling you the playbook. And the Patriots are guilty of one of two things. Either they're guilty of not adhering to the playbook and not giving Mac the help that he needs and the team deserves, or they tried it last year and they failed at it, right? If Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Matt Judon, they went and spent, okay? They went and spent. So either they didn't spend wisely and they got the wrong or bad players, or they're just not following the playbook, period. And neither of those things are all that good. But look around football. Teams are gearing up. Teams are making runs. Teams with cheap quarterbacks are doing things, and you are not. Even, look, the Jags with Trevor Lawrence, they go out and take a shot on Calvin Ridley, a first-round talent, gearing up. Chicago goes to get Chase Claypool for their young quarterback, and the Patriots are doing nothing. And the Patriots are a team that might be able to get to the playoffs, right? They're 4-4. They're around 500. A couple other games might look easier than we thought they were initially. But once they get to the playoffs, it's going to look like last year. They're not good enough to compete. And former Pat Ty Law said it earlier before all this happened.
I don't see them beating Buffalo. They have to have a total team effort to beat those guys. But being that they're playing in the East, they do have a chance to go to the playoffs. But I can't see them right now getting out of the first round the way they're playing.
Yeah, and even more so now after the trade deadline, because you just see what teams are doing. Miami's a tougher game now. Minnesota's a tougher game now. That's hard to overcome. Yes. Could they beat Vegas? Yes. Could they beat the Jets? Yes. Could they beat the Colts this week? Yes. I can plausibly get them to 7 wins like that. So could they win 8 or 9? Sure they could. But they're not going anywhere in the playoffs. And that should bother you. Now, Bob Socci tried to make me feel better about the Pats' win on Sunday. Yesterday, I didn't feel all that great about it, and I get it, right? Bob's right. Special teams was good. I mentioned that yesterday. I'm not impervious to recognizing good things. The Pats did do some good things on Sunday against the Jets. But overall, I didn't walk away feeling all that great. And I don't feel that great about the state of the organization right now today. I think they'll win the game I go to on Sunday, and I'm thrilled for that. I want to see a win rather than a loss. But it's frustrating, and you should be frustrated too. I'm also frustrated with the Celtics, right? They're going to let Ime Udoka walk to the Brooklyn Nets. How would you feel if you were Jason Tatum, if you were Jaylen Brown, if you were a guy in that locker room who played for Ime Udoka? How would you be feeling right now? We'll tackle that question and more on the Celtics. That's next in the Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV AM and FM.
I'm Phil Scott. We've been through a lot over the last few years, and you've seen firsthand how I lead, making tough decisions day in